So welcome everybody, and thank you for being here at this hot seat edition of the Small Business Big Impact webinar series. As you know, I have a great passion for small businesses. They are the backbone of our economy, and we are often squeezed for resources, for people, and I love having this group to come together to support each other and to see what we're having, what challenges we're having in common. So we don't feel so alone, right? It's kind of it can be lonely at the top, right? Whether you're the business owner or you're an executive in the business, it's nice to be with other people and feel like you can be in a zone where you can be authentic and share and not be judged. So thank you for being here. One way I support you guys and Tevis too, who's CEO of Balance Integration. I'm the president of the small business division of Balance Integration, is to hold this series. So this is the first of the hot seat edition. Normally we do guests, so we're going to probably start doing 2 of these when I launch the mastermind, and the mastermind is going to be launched in October. And so that's where we'll do more of this kind of thing, more of a group setting and coaching. And the guest series will be complimentary, so more people can experience. So we'll talk about what that'll look like. I'll send you information what that'll look like, but I wanted to plant that seed. The next one in this series is on July 15th, and I'm going to have Michael Shine, who is the author of The Hype Handbook, which is really cool. It's about, how do you use shameless propaganda for personal and social good. So that one should be a lot of fun as well. So I want to just say that we all face different challenges, right? Yet we often can find similarities, like I was saying, and that's the beauty of a group interaction like this. So the things that came up when you guys filled out your registration, when I asked that question of what's going on, a lot of commonalities, right? It was about time management. It was about focus. It was about, managing staff, labor, and growth, sales, right? That's common. So I just wanted to share that. Today's hot seat edition, I have, I'll introduce them in a minute, but I am lucky enough to have 2 business leaders who have agreed to be in the hot seat today. And what that entails is they're going to experience in front of you 15 minutes of live coaching, and then we'll have time for a group debrief. I'm going to ask that during the live coaching. You can certainly put things in the chat, but to not interrupt. And for those of you who've experienced coaching, it's very much about asking questions and listening and guiding and the big A word, advice, right? Giving advice, inputting your own experience. You kind of put on the side, right? You let the person experience it and go through it. And that's what we're going to do together. So might be a little challenge for those of you who are used to problem solve. We're always trying to problem solve. So might be a little bit challenging for those of you used to doing that. So to put that aside, and no, what kind of questions can I ask about them and this experience as opposed to me and what advice I would give, right? So it'll be an interactive session. Write in the comments, participate. As always, keep it pitch free, right? Because this is a pitch free zone, and supportive. And so I just want to commend, before we get started, I just want to commend our 2 business owners today. So Jake Wegweiser, who's up there in mine, he's on the top, he's waving right there. And Joe Rencher, who I know for about 5 years now, I think, for really opening yourselves up to being vulnerable to have this conversation, right? Because it's not easy being vulnerable. I mean, Brene Brown talks about this all the time, right? Vulnerability is such a challenge for business leaders. And Tevis and I were having a deep conversation about this the other day. We all pride ourselves as being high performers, and we want to look like we got it all figured out. Just because I'm a certain age and I'm in a certain spot in my career does not mean I have it all figured out. Like sometimes if I write something and I share it with somebody who is younger than I am, they think they can't comment. I'm like, Tevis, do we have it all figured out? I certainly don't, right? Tevis and I have been, doing employee experience for 20 years, me for about 7. And we're in the process of pivoting and changing. She's going to be very involved with C-suite and leadership coaching, and I with the small business consulting and executive coaching. And we coach each other all the time. So the only way it works is if we come to it with our full self, if we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to be transparent, to be authentic and honest, right? And listen, and understand we don't have all the answers. So I don't know, Tevis, do you have anything to add to that before I dive in here?
Yeah, I think that that it's a great thing to think about too. Like when we step forward in this way to explore and grow in a community, to remind ourselves that the place in which we're going to help other people grow is a place in which we show up as having something to grow in ourselves. Like that's where people go, oh, wow, they look all amazing, and Jake's so amazing, and Joe is so amazing. But then even as amazing as any of us can be, that we are willing to take the mask off, right? And say, this is really something I want to focus on. I lead a podcast, I think some of you guys know, and I get really bummed sometimes because sometimes we'll hit live studio and I'll see the mask come back on and stuff. And so it's just such an act of courage. So I want to applaud Joe and Jake for stepping forward. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, to reinforce, what she's saying, the value of this conversation is really seeing how you can sit with your own struggles and come aligned with your own resourcefulness, right? So all of us can do better. All of us need help. And I really applaud you guys. So yay, Jake and Joe, little golf claps for everybody for stepping into the hot seat. I'm going to start with Jake, if that's okay with you, Jake. And
sounds good to me.
I'm gonna pin you. I'm gonna co-pin you. And I met Jake through Adam Holzer, who's on the line here. He's the co-founder of a newly launched Hoga, which is really, really cool. So he introduced me to Jake. So thank you, Adam, for that. And to give you context, Jake is 25 years old. He's New York born and bred. And he recently, about 3 years ago, moved back to New York to join the family business, which is Horticultural Creations. And when you go into those buildings and you see all the beautiful design, that horticultural design, that's what their company does. And they help provide custom plant, floral, and holiday displays to companies and buildings. And so the interesting thing about that is his grandfather started that company in 1976. So you can imagine in 2021, right, what that must be like to join a family business that, your family's been involved with so long. And so, especially with you, Jake, being sort of in the beginning of your career journey, honestly, right? So anything to add? I wanted to give you guys context of the business that we're going to be talking about, so you can better relate to what might be happening here. Did I miss anything, Jake, about that?
No, that was spot on.
Got it. Cool. So when I spoke to Jake before this, we said, what is a challenge that you are feeling right now that is pulling you right now, right? And we come up with the idea of him needing to really become a thought leader in this space. I think a lot of us are in businesses where we need to position ourselves as a credible source. Now, can you imagine the challenge that someone like Jake might have, being 25 years old, stepping into a family business that's been around for decades and having to establish himself as a thought leader, right? And the company is a thought leader. So Jake, let's spend 15 minutes talking about this. When you talk about establishing yourself as a thought leader, what does that mean? What is the outcome that you're looking to have as a result of that?
Well, in essence, I think I want everybody to think of me as like the plant guy or the flower guy. And I mean, yeah, everybody smiles at that, but like when you're looking at something at a space, your first idea, to me, I always wanted to design it with plants or incorporate health and wellness. So I want people to think of me as the person who can help them do that, and get them not, everybody has a beautiful office space now, especially in New York, and you invest so much money into it, obviously pre-pandemic, and now things might've changed, but still you're investing in that office space for your employees, for guests that are coming in. So I want to be that first thought that you think of. And it's not like, oh, who is someone that we know? It's like, oh, I think I know someone. It's Jake. Or that HC company, just something that just, rings a bell that makes yourself sound familiar, at least for me. Because just like you said, I'm not new to the company. I've been helping out since I was 9, but coming back as a 25-year-old, and a lot of these companies already have existing relationships for 10, 20 years, just like we do. So how can I establish myself as a thought leader to maybe make, somebody like a Silverstein company or a Cushman Wakefield or a big building, actually take me seriously. And it's not like, oh, this kid just wants to have a sale, so to speak.
Yeah, put some nice flowers in the corner, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's true. You're working with I won't mention the names because I'm not sure if you're supposed to, but when we first spoke, you were talking to this CEO of a large financial institution, the Rudin family you're talking about. Yeah. So I'm glad you clarified that, because what I was curious about was whether this is something that you want to establish for yourself externally or even internally, right? Because when you step into a business, so is it externally focused?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you have the aspect of me where it's, externally towards clients and externally towards prospects and other people. And I also think that I also have a big struggle internally as well, because it is a family business. I am 3rd generation. So I feel like a lot of eyes are on me, what time I come into work, what time I leave work, if I'm actually how much money I'm bringing in or new sales, how I'm impacting the business. And it's not just like I'm being fed a silver spoon. And to me, that is the more important part, because at the end of the day, if, ideally I want to be taking it over and running it eventually. So I want at least the people who I'm working with to be feeling like they're working with me, not for me. And I don't want them to feel like they're, kind of just like being swept under the rug, but I don't know if that's the right term for it, or just being ignored because, I'm the grandson or the son in the case. So I don't want it to be like, oh, he gets the silver spoon. I want them to feel like, oh, you know what, like we actually can get behind this kid. He is not just a kid, but he's like our leader. So that is the most important part for me. But I think it then translates to, if I can handle it internally with more harsh critics like my close coworkers, then I can definitely figure out how to position myself as a thought leader to a prospect who I potentially haven't even spoken to before.
Very interesting. So to restate your goals around that, right? So you have the challenge of establishing yourself as a credible, hardworking resource within the company. So not walking in as if you have a silver spoon and you can do whatever you put your feet up and everybody go work and I'm going to sit there, right? And so that ultimately you become the external resource as well, to be that plant guy, that go-to plant guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you mentioned taking over and you mentioned hitting numbers, right? So that's sort of a long-term goal you're looking for. Is that the why of why you want to? Okay.
Well, that's the why. Yeah. That, and also just the why of, I just think that, being, I've always just had a passion for kind of being that thought leader, or as that corny term that everybody's using now, like the social media influencer. Like not necessarily, making millions of dollars off of TikToks or like Instagram promoting products, but at the same time, I want to have that big following and just develop a group even of like-minded individuals who have that same passion and interest of, health and wellness and transforming your space. So that's like the end term long goal. But to get there, I think I need to focus on the 2 things that you just reiterated for sure. Yeah.
Interesting. So what would you, on a scale of 1 to 10, right? You're, from 1 being, nobody knows who the heck I am. I'm not a credible, resource. I'm nowhere near being a thought leader, to 10 being, I'm a resource. I'm an influencer with 1 million followers and my phone is ringing off the hook because they know I'm the go-to guy. Where do you think you currently land?
I think in my own head, I like to tell myself I'm an 8 or a 9, but I know in reality that I'm probably more, I would say between a 4 and a 6 in that realm, but maybe closer to a 4 and a 5, only because I kind of just started fine tuning some strategies that I've been doing on LinkedIn, started posting more consistently. The types of posts that I've been posting are a little bit more, I guess, engaging rather than me selling, so to speak. So before, I feel like a lot of my posts were, hey, are you thinking about redesigning your office space? Well, like, let me know, and then showing a picture. And granted, that's good once in a while, but if you constantly see that advertising, it's like, okay, all this kid wants is just to use me for a relationship and sell, rather than something like I posted yesterday where it's like, hey, just out of curiosity, who do you guys go to when you look for a mentor? And just asking people just to see who might else have a mentor, because I know that's big in, across all communities. So just kind of changing my my strategy.
Your strategy. And are you noticing that you're getting more engagement when you change your strategy to that?
Yes. Yes. Well, at least with better quality people. I was getting good engagement before, but I feel like it was just my close friends supporting my posts, which is always great and nice to see my close friends liking my stuff and supporting. But also at the same time, I want to, as a business, a future business owner, I want to be able to, as we all do, tie monetary or some type of return back to it.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So I've seen a lot more of my quality prospects and people who I would want to talk to start to creep up here and there, or come across my newsfeed, which is good.
So in defining what a 10 would be, right?
Yeah.
It sounds to me like it'd be quality prospects are engaging with you, right?
Yep.
What else would it be?
It would be quality prospects engaging. It would be more inbound leads. I don't necessarily have a strict number, but I guess, right now I have 0. So it would be like a 1.
What would be, would it be 1? Would it be 10? Would it be?
Ideally, I would say comfortably like 5 to 10 a month is probably like good. We don't, again, we're not, I'm not in the business of getting the most market share. It's more about the strategic partners who see the value in more of the design work. So I'm okay with having fewer leads, but if they're just like the higher quality, I'm fine with that. And I guess also just growing the following base that we do have across the different channels. So newsletter, we have about 35 people signed up right now. Ideally, I want to get that to about 100 to 150 of regular people getting that blast out. For followers, I at least want to have over 1,000 across the board. My LinkedIn, I'm just about there. Social media, on my personal Instagram, I'm just about there. But on the company side, I know that's a lot harder to do. We're at a couple hundred, but if I can get into the 1,000 mark, that's like the next big milestone that I would at least like to have, just at a bare minimum, just to be able to cover that many people.
Okay, great. So those are some very tangible goals around, positioning yourself as a thought leader, internally and externally. If you can get quality prospects, if you can have between 5 and 10 inbound quality leads a month, and growing your newsletter base from 35 to 100, 150, and your followers to about 1,000 per.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So what do you think? How do you think you can get there?
I think a lot of it has to be content. Well, first is content, but then it's also coming up with the content, and then it's coming up with valuable content that will relate to people. So I can obviously talk about plants and what to do, but what are the topics of people that are of interest, right? Like I'm thinking how to actually take care of your home plants. Many people always make the joke about like, hey, I don't have a green thumb. So things like that can actually help people in their house or outside of work. I also think now that I've been networking more and involved in this beautiful spider web, I'm starting to see that not only it takes up a lot of time, but also I just meet a good amount of people. And when I've been talking with Adam, who's here on the call too, him and his mindset of Huga, just with the abundance mindset and just having a good group of people and doing business in a different way and just building really quality relationships with people. I think I've been focusing on that. And now that I have a good, not like a base where it's huge, but a good solid base, I can start utilizing my network a little bit more to maybe have smaller groups where it's maybe I do a webinar like you about, like the weekly plant series or something, but just starting to use the relationships that I have a little bit differently so that they can support the messaging that I'm going across, because the most powerful thing that you do have is the network in your own backyard in your first or second degree. So now that I've spent, about a year, even with the pandemic, a year and a half, 2 years, building that base, not that it's, again, somebody like, you guys who have been in the industry a lot longer, it's still something that I can at least use as a stepping stone to take that first step forward. So I think those are the two things, are really just utilizing my network to help kind of expand even into more webs, and also just making sure that my content is being pushed out, not on a regular basis, but it's also of relevance to the people that I am pushing it in front of.
So when you say quality leads, right?
Yes.
Because I'm just thinking about really narrow targeting, right? Because you only need, and I'm saying only, right, but 5 to 10 quality leads a month. And, so where can you find these people? So for example, is there a particular, I'm using magazine, but it could be anything, right? That your target audience, they rely on as a Bible for something. Is there, where can you really find these prospects? Because I agree with you. Yes, you can put out amazing content, and you can, engage with your friends and perhaps get referrals and things like that. I'm just wondering where you can really focus your energy to get those quality leads.
Yeah, it's a question I'm still kind of asking myself as I go through it too, to be honest. I mean, I don't know if it's the most efficient way, but I kind of just use LinkedIn and I just Google the position. So it could be general manager at, and then, the hotel that I want to go after. I just type in hotel, 5-star hotels in New York, and I just run down the list, and I can do that. But I also think
a lot of detective work, right? So
yeah, a lot of it is.
I mean, are GMs is that the creme de la creme for you? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, GMs and facility managers and property managers and building owners. Those are, so at least I know the titles to go after. But again, somebody who's the global head of real estate and facilities for, Silverstein Properties is a lot harder to get in touch with than the general manager of the St. Regis Hotel that's here in New York. Which is weird to say, but yeah, it's a lot more difficult. So I guess it kind of you can break it down into another question of, even within those quality, like how within those specific verticals do you get in front of them? And that's something that I'm still trying to work on too, because I think everybody's different, and something catches your eye a little bit differently. But a lot of it is the detective work, and ideally I would like to not have it be so heavily reliant on the detective work, and make it a little bit easier on myself, and have maybe some people come to me. But for right now, a lot of it is just going out, searching, finding. But I think maybe like the commercial magazines probably, or like the real estate magazines might be interesting. I look at those on the free trial, but I know that there's a lot of content and people who subscribe to those, and I don't yet. And there's a lot of good stuff on there. So I think maybe vertical or industry specific publications or media or groups I can maybe follow or join or get involved in, because I think those have the people that I would want to talk to. But
Awesome. So I want you to come out of this with a commitment, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think what I've heard you say is that a qualified lead for you are these general managers, facility, property managers, etc.
Yes.
It takes detective work, but you can find them. And so if we were in a coaching relationship right now, I would give, we would come up with an assignment together, and then we would check in on it in a week or two, or whatever we decided, right? So what is that assignment? How can you find, it sounds to me like the first step in really establishing yourself as a thought leader in this space is figuring out the people that you need to establish yourself with.
Yeah.
That seem.
Yes, I think that I would probably take it in the step of figuring out the people I want to be connected with or be speaking with, and not necessarily just titles, but I think I have a hot list of companies that's like a huge list of all like my top favorite companies in New York, like ESPN, the Rangers organization, like all the cool things that I would like to be a part of. I would probably want to get actual names of people who I think, so it's not just general manager at ESPN, it's Adam Holzer, head of real estate at NHL or something like that. So at least I'd know and have a vision of who I want to go after. And then I would say the next step would be actually maybe doing a little bit of research on those individuals and figuring out what they're like, maybe what Adam, for example, sorry, Adam, I'm picking on you, but what Adam likes to like on Twitter, or the most recent post that he posted, or topics that he likes. So maybe I can create context and content around stuff that he might be interested in. And then I think lastly would be actually building out that content or game plan on how to strategically get it in front of them. So that kind of path. But I think you're right. First, my first assignment is to figure out the actual names and titles of people on my hot list, and kind of go after them, and probably create a list of 10 to 25 that are really quality leads that I can really start to personalize content and messaging towards to get in front of, so that I can build that unique relationship with them.
And industries, right? So you've talked about certain industries, largest typed in, construction
Right.
is an industry, so industries. So the non-sexy assignment, right? Because some of this stuff is really just not sexy. It's just, so like getting a speaking engagement in front of the blah, 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 where everybody is there. That's nice and sexy, right? And you'll get there. But so the non-sexy assignment is coming up with a list of 50, 100, how many?
50 is good.
50, quality leads. Is that like a fair, something you can commit to?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can do that. And yes, to answer your question, Laura, in the chat, construction would be an area to focus on too. We have done that. There's a lot of companies who we've spoken to in the past that we're definitely that's definitely an avenue. It's just tough because a lot of those companies don't necessarily involve us right away. That's more of the architects. But those types of projects are definitely something that we're trying to move more into, especially now that they're becoming more and more common. So it's something that we're always keeping our eye out, definitely, for to any way that we can get in earlier in the process. I think that stands for every small business owner. If you can get in the beginning of any sort of sales process, it's just going to help you not only control that process, but really, build relationships with all the key players that you're going to need. So that was a good point, though. I'll definitely keep construction in the back of my head, though, for sure.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Jake. That was awesome. I want to turn it to the group. And before I turn it to the group, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you to write into the chat. So as a reminder, this was, a hot seat, coaching session for Jake in 15 minutes to try to come to something, really solid that will help him move towards his goal. So, and as a coach, right, I think you probably noticed that I didn't give him any advice, right? I really just tried to lead him through his journey to get to a place where he felt good about feeling heard, knowing what his goals is, solidifying those, and being able to come up with an action step. So
that was a lot of critical thinking for 8:30 to 9 o'clock in the morning.
You did great. You did great.
In a good way.
So for you guys, what was the most powerful part of that conversation? Just put it in the chat. And again, you can hook up with Jake another time and give him all the advice that you want, but for this session, that's not what this is about. What for you was the most powerful part of that conversation, whether it's something that you were able to take away for your business, or something that you saw Jake, light up, or whatever might happen. And Jake, what was the most powerful part for you?
I think for me, it was just, Tevis took the words out of my mouth, getting just really specific about specific requests. Because I think a lot of the time, especially in networking and the one-on-ones that I've had with people, it's like, oh, how can I help you? What's a good prospect for you? And they're like, oh, just any property manager, which is great. But okay, like I'm not necessarily thinking as actively if somebody says, hey, I'm looking actually to meet a property manager at Cushman Wakefield at 350 Park, right? Like that is a specific thing. It's like, oh, I don't know them at that location, but I do know them right across the street. And then that's when I could start making connections for other people. But I also feel like that's when I've gotten the best return back from my other from the people who I was speaking with.
Yeah. And so Deborah says a similar thing, identifying very action-oriented goals versus just a goal, right? Yep. Karen, the solution instead of saying you should do this. Yeah, that's hard. It's really hard to not try to fix someone else's problem. I lead retreats out in Montauk, and one of the most powerful exercises that we do, I call the judgment exercise, is people have 2 minutes. I put them in pairs, and they have 2 minutes to talk with each other, right? Each. So one person would say, what do you judge yourself for? and the person would answer. And the only job of the other person is to listen and say, how come? How come? How? No advice, no other questions, just how come? And try it for 2 minutes and see how uncomfortable it makes you feel to be like, wow, I never realized I just always want to give people advice, because you want to help. We're a lot of, we want to rescue people. We want to help. So
Right.
it's very powerful. So thank you for recognizing that, Karen.
I also think it's the whole process of figuring out how to strategically go through it. Not necessarily just saying, hey, my end goal is to get more quality leads, which is great. I have that end goal, but how do you actually get there in a planned, strategic, comfortable way? Because a lot of times I feel like I'm looking at the end picture and the end goal, and I'm in my head already taking off more than I can chew. And I'm getting stressed out about like, oh, I'm not at, I don't have 10, 50 leads today. I'm not going to reach my end goal, or I'm not going to get my 10 leads a month. But actually, like, just talking with you and going through how are you going to get there? Well, first I'm going to find the quality leads, then I'm actually going to research, and then I'm going to go through it. It makes me feel a little bit more comfortable tackling this goal and the goals that I have, rather than a little bit more overwhelmed and maybe anxious to start when I don't necessarily have a plan or a somewhat clear path. So yeah, that was the other part for me.
Yeah, so breaking into little action steps. I think Deborah said a similar thing, and Adam, yeah, not BSing yourself. Just kind of awesome. Well, thank you. I'm gonna say thank you, and let's continue the conversation. Give Jake a little round of applause for being open and honest and sharing with us. And I'm gonna ask Jo. I'm gonna put her to step into the hot seat, my dear. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. So Jo Rencher, I met her, I think it was in like 2016 when you were the Chief Business and Talent Officer of the Girl Scouts of USA. Actually, I'd introduced you to Tevis at a Disrupt HR event where you were wearing the most fabulous shoes. I remember we were, yes. And we all became fast friends and really supportive of each other ever since. And so now, you had officially launched a consultancy called WGNinHR. So WGN stands for Who's Got Next, which I love. And which is strategic HR solutions, executive search, executive coaching, and just the last couple of years, you've really focused on growing that business. And actually, if you want to check her out, she's got a great HR training program called Lead In, and I'll include Jake and Jo on an email follow-up, so you have their contact information. And I love that you're a coach, but you're also a proponent of a coach needing a coach. And so here we are. When you're an author, right? So she wrote this amazing book, Tough as Nails: Finding Your Voice as a Woman in the Workplace. Very powerful. So Jo, you're an amazing person, career coach. You have amazing experience in HR. I appreciate you being vulnerable and stepping into this space. You're in the throes of building a business, and I would say that everyone that knows you and looks at you probably thinks that you have it all together. You've got the resume, you got, you're fantastic looking, and you're always well put together, but we're all working on things, right? So anything to add before I dive into what we chose to talk about?
Yeah, no, just what you said is, I think, spot on, which is, we're all struggling with something. As a business owner, I think the challenges are more than you can ever anticipate when you get into this. And so looks are deceiving. And I think unpacking and getting underneath all of the issues is helpful for all of us. No one has it all together. And I certainly don't feel like that on many days as I look to build. I'm excited about what I do, but I'm always learning. If you're not in a posture of learning, then you're essentially going backwards, in my view.
I hear. I mean, and that's why I was so thrilled that you said yes to doing this, because, we all could use the help and the experience of hearing another perspective and being led through a process. So we talked about helping you navigate the difference between sort of the multitasking that's necessary to support a client and the multitasking that's necessary to grow and support your business, right? Because it's like you want to serve the client because you want them to grow with you, but you also got to figure out how to grow the business. So I'm curious as to what's the outcome what are you hoping to get out of that? Why that balance? Why is that something that you want to work on?
Yeah, well, I think part of it is I've always been a bit obsessed with, am I spending my time properly? Am I spending my time properly? And it's a very precious commodity, as we all know, and you can't buy it. And once you lose it, you don't get it back. And it's one of those things where you have to be, as a business owner, constantly questioning yourself, at least I am, as to, am I spending it properly? Because I'm a multitasker by nature. And, when I was working for other people, that could work fairly well, which is you get a lot of things done. You feel like you've accomplished something, but are you accomplishing the right things is a question that hits you squarely in the face when you're a business owner. I'm a bookkeeper. I got to be the bookkeeper, the IT person, where are the paper clips? I got to figure out the supplies. I got to think about every aspect of building the business, but I also have to be thinking about growth. And so for me, it's about, am I getting the right return on where I'm spending my time? So I try to break it down in terms of percentage of time, that I'm spending in very specific categories, which I'm happy to get into. But I would love, for people to sort of check me on that. Like, does that make sense when you think about, first, the goals that I've set, but the return that I might be expecting? Is there a way to think about that a little bit more formulaically in terms of a tangible return versus intangible returns? Like, how are other people thinking about return, the return on investment of time and energy as you go after the growth component? Because I have myself spread across a few different areas, and I just want to be sure those are the right ones.
Right. So let's define return for you.
Okay.
What would a good return on investment be for you?
So, well, I could sort of break it down into the areas where I'm sort of spreading my time, looking for that return. One is on leads, and sort of I'm looking for a minimum of 20 quality leads every month, and that's a minimum. I'm breaking that down when I think about the three business areas, the three practice areas that I'm focused on. I'm really trying to zoom in on the types of leads in each one of those practice areas, and at a minimum across the board, I'm looking for 20.
So 20 per each of those areas, at least, you're saying?
No, not 20 for each of the areas, just 20 across the board. I've got it. I mean, I don't want to bore everybody with the
No, that's okay. Yeah.
spreadsheet calculation, but
so 20 quality leads, a minimum of 20. But what would be ideal? If that's the minimum, what would make you really happy?
Oh, what would make me happy would be probably closer to 35, 40.
Okay.
Yeah. But at minimum, I'm looking for the 20 on the leads. And, I'm using the tools. I have a CRM, a customer relationship, excuse me, management database. I use Sales Navigator on LinkedIn. I have a personal database, so I have, specific tools, maybe too dispersed, too many, but I am trying to use tools in order to generate those leads so that I could sort of come out on the other end. On the subject matter expert goal, I try to have a strong presence out, in, social media presence, particularly on LinkedIn. So I try to spend my time Tuesdays through Thursdays, which are reportedly the high, viewership days at a certain specific time of the day. I try to spend my time in those days with a strong presence as a subject matter expert.
That's a mechanism that you use to get these quality leads.
That's right.
Yes. Okay.
I do. And sometimes, yes, I'll just say yes. Yeah. So
okay.
That's a mechanism, sort of subject matter expertise.
Yeah. And I mean, I see you on LinkedIn. I see you, we were talking about earlier, like you do a beautiful job of that, I think. So is return really defined? How else do you define a return? So leads, is there another way also that you're defining return on maybe existing clients? Because we were talking about the juxtaposition of managing time in both, right?
Yeah. Well, response to the subject matter expertise, it may not be leads that come out of the engagement, but the level of that come out of the presence that I have, but the level of engagement is an outcome that I'm looking for. So when people are engaging and they want to know more, or they think something is interesting, to me that that goes into the big pot of not only possibilities, but, maybe I'm being helpful. I'm in this business to actually help people.
Mhm.
So, ultimately that to me is a major return, which is I'm interacting, people are finding that useful.
That's really awesome, because you have the real tangible definition of what a return on investment is with your
Yeah.
time, right? Where the leads are concerned and people are engaging with your content, and you're feeling like the presence, is happening in that space. And then this more somewhat less tangible, like helping people, like that's whether it's a post or whether it's a client, right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. Helping people for sure. Yeah, I mean, those are the sort of the big, would top the list.
Those would be the two.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so if you have these 35 to 45 quality leads, and it's apparent that you're helping people, what would be, how would that feel to you? What would that look like to you in terms of an outcome? Is that something that, would that mean that your business is successful? Would there be a financial thing that would be happening? Would it mean that, is that your definition of success? I'm just curious, why do that? Why those returns?
Yeah. Well, on the helping people, I think, again, that's sort of I'm here to help, that's what I feel like I'm called and led to do. So I think there's a intrinsic return that I'm after that is, it fills my own well.
Mm.
And it, allows me to sort of give back to, particularly to a field and in a profession that I've been in for so long, 25 plus years. It feels that there's an opportunity to really give back and to pour back into that field. So to me, that's intrinsic. The other is, so dollars and cents. I need to grow revenue, and I have a percentage of a portfolio across those three areas that I'm really very focused on growing, at the end of any given year. So, the practice area, I'm looking, for growth, very specific growth in each one of those three areas. So that's what it looks like at the end. If I hit that, that means I'm successful.
I love the way that you put that in context. So it can be, a bit of a rabbit hole, right? Sometimes.
Mhm.
So it's, because you have these three categories, and where do you spend more time, which is more lucrative, which is less lucrative, all that kind of stuff. I know you have that figured out in your head. I'm just curious about how do you think, what is something you can be doing, do you think, that would help you better get those qualified leads, and thus, be somebody who's really helping some people, making an impact?
I think I could be more organized.
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm really raspy this morning with this allergies. I
Or-
can be more organized around, I think I have too many tools.
Uh,
I have too many tools. Uh, and I have to figure out how to consolidate, condense, eliminate, so that I can zoom in on the tools that are actually working and are worth spending my time and energy on, and the ones that are just noise.
which are working, which are noise. I love that. So how can you figure that out? I mean, can you track all of them? Do you know which ones are working best for you?
I do. I haven't. So I mean, I haven't devoted the time. I have a sense. I have more of a gut sense. I haven't devoted. I haven't devoted the time to actually affirm that, but I have a sense. I do have a sense.
So do you think that would be a meaningful action for you, that if you could find some time in your calendar to dedicate towards seeing
Yes.
which are meaningful and which are noise? Okay. Because what will happen as a result of you doing that?
I'm sorry. I'm writing my
No,
assignment.
go ahead.
Uh,
I said, if you do that, right? If you carve out the time to determine which are meaningful and which are noise,
Yeah.
what would that mean? What would be the outcome of that? How would that feel?
Well, I feel less anxious for sure, and less like I'm spending my time badly. But I would also reduce, I think, some of the waste that is lurking in the use of some of these tools and the return on them.
That's really interesting, right? Because when you think about the waste, when you think about when you're using a tool that's not really meaningful for you, and the energy, there's there's the personal energy and there's also the financial energy, right, that you have to expend on it. And
Right.
what does it cost you? A question I often ask my clients is, what is it costing you? And I don't mean necessarily money.
Yeah.
I mean in energy and in time and all these.
Mhm.
And so, so when do you think you can carve out time to do that, Joe?
Um, I think I can carve out time probably every, I think I can actually set aside a portion of time. I have two thoughts, probably a portion of time, a couple of days a week, or my Fridays tend to be my best days, actually, my days that I tend to free up most effectively. So on second thought, sorry, thinking out loud, I
Yeah,
probably
go for
can
it.
dedicate Fridays to really go after that.
I love that. And my guess is that as you start to dissect it, right, you'll have to spend less time on it, and then you can use that time towards these other things, like with the working with the qualified leads.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So does that feel like something you can commit to? I don't know if tomorrow is Friday. I don't know if tomorrow is too soon if you're already scheduled.
No, I do. It's yes, I do feel like I must commit to it. It's
Yeah,
been bugging me.
I understand. I mean, how many of us, right, have spent, wasted energy just trying to figure out what the heck's working, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put that down on my list that tomorrow I'm going to follow up with you and say, how'd it go when you had started dissecting your tools? Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. Joe, how was that for you?
It was good. I was sort of reflecting as I was talking about what I was planning on doing and what's working and what's not. It's hard. This is very hard work, but it's good hard. It feels good, doing this when you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah, we often don't carve up enough time, to focus on we're so busy focusing on our clients' business and, our personal, maybe our families or friends or
Right.
whatever. It's helpful to take a step back. I noticed some chats, Tevis, yeah, you're right. There's also faith energy. Having faith that something's gonna actually pan out and working that. And Deborah, yes, thank you. Excellent personal assessment for you, Joe, on identifying the tools that deliver results and helping, you be more efficient. So I'm going to ask you all the same question I asked you before, and I'm going to remind you that this is not about giving advice, right? That this is about thinking about what was a powerful moment for you during that conversation, whether it's how it applied to your own experience and your own goals, or as it relates to you seeing Joe work through what she needed to work through to get to an actionable step that will move her down the path she wants to go. Why don't you type it on in the chat? An interesting, and I learned this from Tevis, an interesting tool, a mechanism that you all can use when you need to carve out that time is time blocking. I struggle with time blocking. I've always struggled with time blocking. I continue to put things in my calendar and it comes up and I'm not doing that now, but I get better at it. It's a practice, right? So, but time blocking is literally looking at your calendar like Joe just did and said, Fridays, wow, that's a great day for me to focus on this. So I encourage you to look at your calendar right now, whatever it is you need to focus on, put in a block of time to do it. And pretend it's a doctor's appointment, because you would never cancel a doctor's appointment, right? But everyone's so apt to cancel on themselves, but you would never cancel on somebody else. So mark that in your calendar. Laura, yeah, it was powerful. Making being organized a priority. We don't have to be, just because we're entrepreneurs doesn't mean you have to be mad professors, even though like sometimes creativity can come out of some of that stuff. Give yourself time to be organized. I love that, Laura. Tevis, yeah, both conversations they were holding, both detail stuff and big picture correlation between the two is clear. Yeah. So it's like, it doesn't mean that you can't be a big picture thinker if you have to break it down into baby steps and put really tangible actions against it. Because if you're a solopreneur or if you have a small team, like Joe, you said in the beginning, you got to be the bookkeeper, the scheduler, the big picture thinking, all that stuff. That takes different kinds of brain activity. So scheduling that time for just being and being creative, again, I'll toot Tevis's horn here. She does that all the time. Making that time to just create space can be very powerful. Going for a walk without a device, all these different things. I come up with my best ideas when I walk to the market without my phone. Tevis, time is definitely a valuable commodity. Absolutely. It was interesting, Jake, too, how you both were really very focused on the qualified leads. I thought there's only 24 hours a day. We need to consistently fine tune. Yeah, Nancy, you're right. Putting an appointment on your calendar makes a huge difference. I noticed about you need to put your vacation on your calendar, Nancy. I noticed that was in one of your in your to-do list. Yeah, and I agree, Deborah, that Joe did a great job of identifying action-oriented goals versus just the tools. Awesome. Well, thank you. Anyone have any questions? Anyone ever been coached before? I'm just curious if you guys have the experience of being coached before. Maybe just, raise your hand. I'm just curious if any of you have had that experience. Nancy, I know Dina has.
If I can just say what's different with the great program you've set up is if some of us have been involved in corporate or even in small business where you might have a direct report to a CEO, you oftentimes may get the opportunity to work with your mentor, but it's not the same because you are combining both personal and business goals and getting people to be more thought-provoking. Because in an office environment, I don't think the radar or that mindset is as targeted as what you're doing, which is excellent. This was really well done.
Thank you. And thank you for saying that. A big part of what you bring to work is whether you can be yourself and how fulfilled are you as a human being, and are you focusing on your own self-care? And I know that self-care and is a term people roll their eyes, but it's really true. If you can't put your oxygen mask on first, right, how are you going to help, or how are you going to serve your client base and your community? And so if I'd like it all to make a commitment. Can I get you all to make a self-care commitment? We got the weekend coming up. It's a beautiful day. I see some hands raising. Can you, yep, we love the plan. Can you put into the chat, what's your self-care commitment for the weekend, everybody? Mine's gonna be to take some walks. You saw them at the beach. Take some walks on the beach. Kind of like what Joe was saying before. It's like, you don't really ever have that moment to say, like, what about me? What am I going to do? Yeah. What are you going to do for yourself? Take a walk with no phone and your dog. Love it. Get some yard work done. Some repairs in the apartment. Run outside. Love it. Yeah. Exercise and get cardio going. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Or relaxing with the kids. How you can plant your vegetable garden. I'm going to pick some flowers. My husband planted beautiful garden for us, and we're going to cut some fresh flowers. He's sitting over there listening to me. So we're going to do that. And I'll catch up on books. Yeah. So I'll email you guys. So you have Joe and Jake's contact information. This is recorded, so you'll have that too if you want to relook at it. I'm happy to do a similar short session with anybody on this call if you want to experience it for yourself, or if you want to get into the hot seat on the next one. I highly, what do you think, Joe and Jake? Do you recommend it?
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. The next one of these will be July 15th, where we'll have Michael Shine. He's the author of the Hype Handbook. And then we can do another one of these hot seat editions in August, date TBD. And then, like I said, we'll have a mastermind starting in October. So thanks, everybody. Have a great, great day.
Thanks, Marjorie. Thanks, Tavis. Thanks, everyone. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Thank you, Jake and Joe.
Thank
especially.
you.
Marjorie, you did a fantastic job moderating this and leading.